Lots of good questions.
Cool. So I figured we could go ahead and get started. There's the cute picture of the llama or alpaca. I think they're adorable. So Latin American foodways. So there's two sections of the course. There's CPLT 2863, which is just a course code for enrollment, which we'll talk about in a second. And that section is being taught by Dr. Willis. And then there's a second section. It's an anthropology course 2863, and that's being taught by Dr. Thomas Foster. So just a little bit about like the program. It's a J-term course, which is super exciting. This is the first year we're doing this on campus. So you'll actually be taking the entirety of the course or almost all of the course in Peru. So the first 2 weeks of January is when that's going to happen. There may be a couple courses that happen before you leave in December. That's up to the discretion of the professors, just to get some of those contact hours in so you can meet your classmates, things like that. But we'll communicate that ahead of time. There's no requirements for this course because it's a block course, which is really cool. So you don't have to have a language requirement or any prerequisites, which is fun. So there's a block 1 section, which is the section taught by Bruce. And then there's the block 2 section, which is taught by Dr. Foster. So whatever you're needing in your degree plan, you can pick one of those and enroll in that section. So you make sure you get the correct course. Any questions so far? Anything to add?
Yeah, I would add that the block 1, this is being recorded, right?
Yes. Yeah.
The block 1 rubric that says CPLT, that stands for comparative literature. And, basically people in block 1 and block 2, you're going to be doing a lot of the same activities and readings, but there will be some slightly different readings and activities for block 2 than there are for block 1, depending on which one you take.
Awesome. So this is just a little bit of the logistics. So just as Bruce said, there's 2 sections. You guys are going to have common assignments, but there's just going to be a little bit of difference so that you get the correct transferable credit. One thing to note is that after you pick which section, you can't switch. So you can't go from block 1 and then take the course and decide you want it as block 2. You have to pick beforehand and stick with it. Do you want to talk a little bit about your idea behind the course and what you expect?
Right. The course is based on the idea that we are what we eat. It's just but it looks at the development of culture and agriculture, in this particular case in Latin America. And so we will do a little more kind of general readings about Latin America, but then obviously the focus will be on Peru. And so we'll be looking at how, long before the arrival of the Europeans, the indigenous peoples had their own crops, they had their own cultivation systems, their own agriculture, their entire civilization built on the particular, needs, not just caloric needs, but symbolic needs from food. And so then when the Europeans came, everything changed. How did that affect society? How did that affect the landscape? They brought, against their will, people from Africa. Then many people came from China in the case of Peru, such that today Chaufa cuisine in Peru is kind of a Peruvian Chinese fusion. So we'll look at these different factors that have helped shape Peruvian society and what food looks like in Peru, not just what it tastes like, but where does it come from? How is it distributed? How do people eat it? What does it mean to be looking at food ways in Peru?
Awesome. All right, so program site, you're going to be in Lima and Cusco tentatively. The dates for the program, so when you're actually going to be in Peru and when you're going to be taking this course, or the bulk of this course, is January 2nd through the 12th. That may change by a day or two, just depending on flight prices and things like that. But that's when you should expect to be in Peru. As far as potential activities go, these are also tentative, but this is just the idea that we have for the course. A food tour in downtown Lima, which looks super fun. Visits to the Sacred Valley. I'm not quite sure how to pronounce that.
Right. So, Aguana Cancha is it's an area where you can go and see llama and alpaca. What's the word? It's like a llama and alpaca farm or ranch. It's like a ranch. And you can also see the different kinds of products that they made from their wool. They make from their wool and buy such products. Ollantaytambo is a ruined site in Sacred Valley. It's not as well known as Machu Picchu, but it's very similar in time period and in aspect. And then, yeah, the local potato farm is, I mean, potatoes originally come from the Andes. So they developed all different kinds of potatoes, and we'll see, you know, a selection of the different kinds of potatoes. And then Machu Picchu is still kind of in the works, depending on how many people want to do it.
Any questions?
Nope.
No? Awesome. So just a little more about like the cultural visit. So there's a little picture of the town of Cusco, some pictures of some local cuisine that I found in the Sacred Valley. I think we touched on that. So if you don't have any questions, I'm gonna go ahead and move on. There's a tentative itinerary on the website as well if you want to look through that. So a little bit about logistics, less fun than talking about alpacas and llamas, but here's some important dates. So there's some scholarships here. For every single travel course, there's two major scholarships. There's one called the Foreign Correspondent Grant and one called the Global Engagement Mentor Grant. Both of those are linked in the actual application, so you'll be able to get there. If you decide that you're really wanting to go on this course, I highly recommend that you apply for these. You'll know if you got the money before you have to commit, which is really cool. You just write a short paragraph about why you think you should get the scholarship, things like that, and then we'll let you know whether you got it or not. The Foreign Correspondent Grant, basically all you do is social media while you're abroad. So you'll take pictures, you'll submit the pictures to us, and then you'll write a blog post and do an Instagram takeover. So you're basically like a social media manager, which you'll probably take lots of pictures when you're there anyway. So hopefully it won't be too much extra work for you. And then the Global Engagement Mentor is like a leadership role, kind of similar to like a peer mentor, but like on the trip. So you help streamline some of the processes. You'd help with roll call, making sure all the students are where they're supposed to be. We may ask you to help us corral the students before you leave, like, hey, have you submitted your passport yet? Things like that. So really it's just like a leadership role. So you work with the faculty and staff on site to kind of facilitate some of the things that we need. There's also the Critical Need Grant. That's for students who are Pell eligible. So if you receive FAFSA, if you are Pell eligible at all, please apply for that. Hopefully you'll be able to offshoot some of the costs of going. Yeah, and the application's not super time intensive. There's the Gilman Scholarship as well. That's a nationally competitive scholarship. The deadline is coming up. If you are Pell eligible and interested in that, you can receive up to $5,000. The application is a little more intensive, but please make a meeting with me and we can discuss it and I can help you complete those application items if that's something you're wanting to look into. As far as enrollment goes, so our registration is due by October 15th. Registration and enrollment are different. So registration is through our internal portal. It'll collect your passport information, your health information, some logistical things like that. And there will be a little commit button on there. Once you click commit, then you are committed to the course. So should you decide on October 16th that you don't want to go, that's too late. Once you hit that commit button on or before October 15th, then you're committed to the course. The reason for that is because we have to start making the logistical arrangements, so buying flights, booking tours, stuff like that. So once that deadline hits, we're going to start making those purchases. So that's kind of the idea behind that. So you'll register with us by October 15th, which actually is before enrollment opens. We will manually enroll you in the course after you register, so you shouldn't have to worry about that. Any questions about enrollment?
Nope.
Good. What about scholarships?
Nope.
Nope, not yet? Awesome. And then again, for class and travel, you guys are going to be traveling the first 2 weeks of January, which is super exciting, a cool time to be away. Most of your contact hours, if not all of your contact hours for the course, will happen in Peru. But again, there might be a couple class sessions or meetings before you go in December. There will 100% be at least one session that you'll have to attend in December, and it's a mandatory safety training that I'll give. But we'll make sure that you have all that information beforehand. So a little bit about student costs. So this is going to be on top of it's a fee on top of what you normally pay for your semester. So the total fee for this course is $4,000, subject to change. About $1,500 of that is your flight, and then $2,500 is basically everything else. So this program fee includes lodging while you're there, ground transportation, so taking you to all of the places, all the tours and excursions that are listed on the itinerary, and then some meals, primarily a welcome dinner and a farewell dinner. Since this is a food course, there are more meals that are covered, and that'll be indicated on the actual itinerary that we'll give you. So really, all you'll be responsible for paying on top of this $4,000 are extra meals, souvenirs, and then anything extra that you want to do while you're there outside of the built program. What questions do you have about costs?
So like, do I book the flights or do you?
We book it. Yeah, tentatively we book it. So what we'll do is we'll just give you the information prior to going, and we'll make sure that you have it all in December and that you know what's going on. And more than likely you'll fly from Tulsa with the professors. You guys will fly out together. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Anything else? Yes, Bruce.
Question? No. So students who have financial scholarship during the regular semesters, does that apply to J-term? Do we know how that works?
I don't. I assume. So what I was last told was that J-term is considered part of your spring enrollment.
Okay.
So all of the tuition scholarships and things that you get for your spring are going to count towards this if it's part of like your normal course load. I think that changes if you take over 18 hours, is my understanding. But as long as you're under that 18 number and above 12, then you should be okay. It's part of your spring enrollment.
Got it.
If you get excess scholarships and things, you could use it towards this. I know some students that get paid extra to do that, but this $4,000 is just going to be like on top of that. So your actual like tuition scholarships and things can't go towards the 4,000 unless it's like extra. Does that make sense? No, yes, kind of.
I don't know.
Okay.
To me, I don't know. I
Yeah.
hope it makes sense for the students.
Yeah.
Sort of sense, I guess.
Sort of sense, yeah. Because the 4,000 is on top of like tuition. But tuition is like included because it's just a class on campus. So it'd be like if it was in your normal course load. This is just on top of that. And then the scholarships for this would be those internal scholarships. So like the Foreign Correspondent Grant, the Critical Need Grant, and the Global Engagement Mentor Grant and Gilman could be applied toward that extra $4,000.
Got it. Okay, now I understand.
Okay.
All right. So like the regular tuition is totally apart, and this is extra.
Yes.
This is basically getting us there and setting up the itinerary.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. All right. Here's some information for the professors. If you have questions. There's their emails, their offices. You can also ask me questions. I live here in the CGE, so I'm right down the hall most of the time. Here's a little QR code. If you want to scan it, that brings you to the website where it has all of the scholarships linked. And it's also where you will start your application and register and click that commit button if you're wanting to go on this course. What questions do you have?
So like how many credit hours does this count as?
3.
3.
Mm-hmm. It's a 3-credit course.
So that counts towards your like total number of credit hours for second semester or?
Yeah, for spring. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So like, let's say you take like 4 classes in the spring that are like 3 credits. What is that, like 12 credit hours? And then you're taking the J-term class. It'll actually say that you're enrolled in 15, but you take this one in January. So it'll show up under your spring credits, but you're not taking it technically like during the spring semester. It's during the J-term. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing because when the J-term is over, it's over. Like, you don't You're not gonna be turning in papers the rest of the semester or anything like that. It's all over right then. Which means that it has to happen very quickly. So like when we talk about a course that has 3 credit hours, that means that it has to have 45 contact hours. So we have to build those 45 contact hours into the trip, and we can't count things like sitting on the plane, like it has to be like actual content. So, but yeah, it has to all happen. Any kind of final exam or final paper, has to be turned in, is my understanding, right, by the end of the J term. So, yeah.